One Saturday morning, this is around the same time, the LA Unified came up with a study that said that they were 100 schools short of serving the population of Los Angeles. And it was a front page article in the LA Times. And I'm reading it, and there was a map of Los Angeles, and it had green dots where the need was the greatest. The red dots where the need was, and green dots where there was already enough schools. And so obviously, predictably, the red dots were all through South Central, Boyle Heights, Inglewood, just along the 110 and the 105, if you can imagine that on the freeway map of Los Angeles, where the high need areas were. 100 schools short, and 2/3 of the need were high schools. And in fact, in the article, and something I already knew, Los Angeles hadn't built a high school in 33 years. Wilson High School was the last one. The only thing that happened during that time is the population tripled. So you didn't build any new schools, and the population tripled. And then white people, and then a lot of people who wanted it, black people fled the system. So Los Angeles at that time was an over 80% Latino school district, with God knows what the breakdown is of undocumented and disinfected as far as political force. And so high schools were obviously, since nobody had built a high school in a long time, Shalvey was doing his elementary schools, Kip was known for their middle schools, but nobody was doing high schools. And I'd had this experience where my life changed at 14. So I thought if you could take on the highest need, being high schools, in the highest need areas, and show improvement, dramatic improvement, then everything else should get easier. This was my bizarre idea about change. Also, I was single. I'd never been married, I never had kids. And I used to tell people, just to be flip, that little kids creep me out, and I could at least talk to high school kids. But that wasn't the real reason. It was just that need, the base of need. And so then I set out to find out what was the biggest need area of Los Angeles. Where was the biggest dropout rate? Well, there's a lot of places you can go to. I was mentoring kids at Jordan High School in Watts. That school for years would have 1,500 ninth grade kids and then 500 sophomore kids. So I'm not a Rand fellow, but somewhere between 9th and 10th grade, we're losing 1,000 kids. And people can jimmy it and explain it any way they want. But that was happening around the city. But I found this community called Lenox. Now, Lenox is, when you're flying into Los Angeles at LAX, the last houses you see before parking lot C and the runway is Lenox, which just begs the idea of who would live under a flight pattern where you're getting this, one of the most popular, overused airports in the country just dumps oil and gas on you all the time. Well, this unincorporated 2 square miles there was a K-8 system. Those 2 unincorporated square miles had the highest concentration of poverty, and 70% of the kids from this little community would go to Hawthorne High School after 8th grade, and 70% of them would not make it out of Hawthorne High School. Now, Don Shalvey was one of the few people that would understand this, and anybody with gray hair would understand this. Hawthorne High School was known for one thing and one thing only, nationally and internationally. That's where the Beach Boys met. That's where the California dream was, hatched. Well, there's no blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids at Hawthorne High School. There was a time when the defense industry and aerospace people they lived in Hawthorne and Inglewood, and they would send their kids there. But they had long left that community. And so 7 out of 10, I met a superintendent, Bruce McDaniel, who saw that Don Shalvey was on my board, and Don was famous, so he knew I was somewhat legitimate. We started talking about doing a high school. I actually would sit in this guy's office, and we actually wrote the charter together, which was 44 pages, which became the first Green Dot school in Lenox. And so then I needed kids. And so this community, I found out 3 things immediately from people in the community and the kids that I started to meet. 1, Lenox is the place where people from Inglewood are afraid to go. 2, because it's unincorporated, the kids and the families used to call it Little TJ, because there's no Burger Kings or supermarkets or nationally known things. It's unincorporated, so it looked like a little Latino village, Mexican village. If you've ever driven around Mexico, which I spent a lot of time driving around Mexico, it really looked like Mexico. And that was the 7 out of 10 kids weren't graduating. And my interaction with the kids at the middle school that fed into what was going to become Animo Leadership Charter High School were really bright kids. And it didn't make any sense to me these kids couldn't make it. So I met kids and faculty at the middle school. I would do some precinct walking. I would walk door to door with this petition. I got a lot of reactions from people like, oh, I've never seen, A, somebody knocking on my door, period, or B, a big white guy with a Dodger hat on. But usually I was with a kid or a teacher from the school, and we got the word out that Lenox was going to create its first, they had a high school 20 years before, which folded, but we were going to create a high school and build on what was happening in the K-8 system. And so at the beginning there was weariness, and then I hired a couple of the teachers from the middle school, which gave it an endorsement. This is a very tight-knit community, and so I started to have some momentum. And so all of that door knocking and building up, and the other interesting thing that happened is that a lot of the faculty at the middle school, who were very protective of their kids and have a lot of ownership, they had a lot of advice on what to do and what not to do. And so I would go every Friday mornings at 7 at the Denny's right on Century Boulevard that leads into the airport. And the superintendent would bring different people, stakeholders, and they would give me my wisdom or Dutch uncle advice or leeriness or whatever. But all of this led up to a parent night where the different schools would come and pitch their wares from high school to the families. And so it was a 4-hour meeting, and I was the last thing on the agenda, which I was really a little pissed about. I thought, wow, these guys are, they're sandbagging me, man. These guys are Bigfooting me. Why are they putting me at the end? Because I just thought about like my mom working all day, missing a shift, waiting tables, coming to this thing and sitting for 4 hours. I always thought about that time and place where she never felt real comfortable at the public schools that I went to. She was never felt accepted. But I went to this thing and it was remarkable. Every family was there. They stayed, and then the most popular meeting that night was this auditorium, which was jam-packed with families from Lenox, the Lenox community. And I did a presentation. I had an interpreter, talked about the school. There weren't that many questions, and which I was shocked by. I thought, oh no, I just laid a dud here. There's not coming. And then I said, I have sign-up sheets in the front, and almost everybody in that auditorium surged forward. And I was there for 2 hours, and I'm looking at these amazing people. And these are folks, you have to understand, that are almost all 95% under the poverty line. They make the beds, they wash the dishes, they cook the meals around the LAX area. They're the laborers. About half of them are undocumented. And so they're really at the toughest level, but almost everybody in that room had risked everything to come to that time and place. And when people risk everything and challenge your comfort zone in such an amazing way, they're not coming to Los Angeles for the high-end jobs and the ticker tape parades and the warm welcoming. It's usually to take the jobs nobody else wants. So you ask the motivation, and you have to understand, the best part about this job is that I get to challenge all my preconditioning. Yes, I have Mexican friends and I have Central American friends, but this is really, when you're the only white person in the room and you're offering up something and you're immersing yourself into this community, you have to let go of the idea that race is not blinding you, or you don't have preconditions, and you're not. Most people at that time and place would say, well, only certain people care about their education. But here are these folks that have nothing but their kids. And they really have risked everything, and it made sense to me that they came to this country for their kids, not for any other reason. Why would you come to this country? Think about the politics of 1999, where we were as a country, as far as undocumented language. We just gone through a couple initiatives, English only. Prop 187 had just happened. This is all in the backdrop of this. And this responsibility of this surge of people that really just wanted something better for their kids. And we signed up their class within 2 hours. I didn't have enough petitions. We just had to start making our own petitions. And it was overwhelming and exhausting, but also it was real now. And so I went out to my car, my 1974 Volvo station wagon, which I used to have a nice convertible. I traded that in, and now I got this car. I'm now a year and a half into this journey where I'm paying myself out of my life savings an $800 a month stipend. My friends have done interventions You haven't even taught. What are you doing? What do you mean you're starting a school? Nobody knows what a charter school even is. And I go out to the car, and I've got these petitions with all these people who've just given me everything they have, and I threw up. And I don't know, I can't remember the last time I threw up. I mean, maybe from having too many beers in college. I mean, I got so overwhelmed by the responsibility, and I just sat in the car for like a half hour and just shook and just went, what did I just do? Now it's real. You have to understand, I didn't have a site yet for the school. So people had this was in May or April. School's going to open in 5 months. I don't have a site. I've got a couple of teachers I'm thinking about. This is a city that hasn't built a high school in 33 years. There's no roadmaps. And most people, especially and a lot of people in the charter community as well, would say, at that age, you've got to kind of give up on those kids. Well, my life changed at 14, so I had this stubbornness about it. But it was an overwhelming responsibility. And there I sat in that parking lot for a good half hour, just freaked out.